box plots are really good at comparing the same variable between groups. All right. So what I have here is an example, and these are box plots for monthly percent of flights that are late. And we have a group of months that are in the 90s and a group of months that are in the 2000s. And then we want to say, how can we compare these box plots? When we're saying what's happening on average, the measure of center that we have for the box plots, which says on average, the average is the mean, but on average, we use the median. So this middle line in the box, that's what we use to compare things on average. So on average, so the first question says, which time period is better with regard to late arrivals on average? So we would look and see we have here that the median percent late for the 90s, it's not quite 12.5. I mean, this whole tick is between 10 and 15. So maybe it's like 12, but somewhere between 12 and 12.5% of the flights were late. And then when I look at the 2000s, this guy looks like it's about 17%. So 17%, almost 5% worse, because more late is worse, all right? So we would say that the 90s were better in terms of late arrivals on average, all right? So let's say here, all right, so the median percent of late flights is worse, larger, for the 2000s than for the 1990s, since the median, well, I'll just say that. So that answers our question. So on average, we use the median, which is the center line in the box. All right, which time period was more consistent? All right, so when we're talking about consistent, this has to do with spread. When things are not consistent, the values vary a lot. And so when I look at the spread of these box plots, when I'm comparing them, when I'm thinking about how spread out is the middle half, I'm looking at the box. All right, so the distance between this left side of the box and the right side of the box, that's the IQR. And so what do we see? This maybe looks like about 18, this is 15. So the middle half of the months were between 15 and about 18% in the 2000s. When I look at the interquartile range, by the way, would be about 18 minus 15. So it's around 3%, maybe a little bit less, I don't know. So it's around 3%. When I look at the 90s, the middle half of the months, we look, it's like maybe it's around 11, maybe 10.5 to 11 to 15. So this is closer to 4%. So the spread for the 90s is a little bit more spread out than the spread for the 2000s. So we would say in the middle half that the smaller spread is more consistent. And then we can also look at the entire range. All right, so the range here for the 90s, we're looking at about 22. Actually, this is the actually, when we're looking at the range, we actually include these guys. All right. So when the spread, when I look at how wide the range is in the 90s compared to the 2000, it's a lot bigger. So we would say that the percent of late flights is more consistent in the 2000s than in the 90s. Because the IQR is smaller in the 2000s. and the range is smaller in the 2000s. All right, next question says, what are the shapes of the distributions of late arrivals for the two time periods? Okay, so again, this is what we were just doing with these graphs. We were saying, okay, this is what we expect. All right, so if I look at the 2000s, my median is left of center. All right, and so in the middle, it seems like it's more spread out on the right side of the median than on the left. So that would mean, okay, this looks like it is right skewed in the middle half of the data. And then when I look at the range, the left side that's outside the box is less spread out than the right side. So again, so it looks like the 2000s is right skewed. Similarly, the 90s have that same pattern. The median is a little bit left of center, so that means that kind of indicates that it's right skewed inside the middle half of the data. And the range, if I go up to here, because my maximum value here is like, you know, what, about 20, maybe 29. So 29 to 6%, somewhere in there. That range is the range on the left side. So if I look at from the median to the right side is a lot bigger than from the median to the left side. So again, I would say this indicates to me that those are right skewed. So here, both time periods are right skewed, since the data is more spread out on the right side of the median. So do we have any outliers? All right, so this for box plots, it indicates whether things are outliers by these dots. All right, so in the 2000s, it looks like we have 2 months where we had an exceptionally high percentage of late flights, and the same is true in the 90s. All right, so here we go. There were 2 months in the 90s and 2 months in the 2000s that were exceptionally high. And they're exceptionally high compared to the rest of the data from those time periods. All right, so that's the interpretation of this box plot.